Leximancer? Well, it's an automatic content analysis engine, and it doesn't do your job. You know, the sense making, the data collection, it doesn't do that. And we wouldn't want it to. Leximancer is about increasing human understanding, not about automating humans away. So it's not trying to make an AI solution to do your job. It's trying to make parts of it easier. The parts that are difficult for humans to do because they're memory intensive, usually, yeah, it's cross-linking ideas with other ideas and finding what words tend to co-occur. So if you went through the text lots of times and had a really good memory, you may not need Leximancer, but it would still be faster to use it. So what is content analysis? It's a research tool for determining the presence of words or ideas, concepts in collections of textual documents. You can take a whole lot of text with a very large vocabulary. Some text collections I've seen with 100,000 unique words in them. And I don't mean the word count, I mean how many unique words are in the text. The vocab count can be huge in some big text collections. That's a lot of variables. It's a lot of things to try to correlate. Content analysis can make that a tractable problem for you. You can certainly use Leximancer to do content analysis of a large set of social media or email that has a vocabulary of 100,000 words. It's definitely up to that job. And so you can use it to build a reproducible and computable model of a very complex and intuitive information space without throwing away too much. Leximancer doesn't throw away too much nuance. And that for some people that can be an issue. If you go through cherry picking through a set of text, just looking for things that you were expecting to find or some theory told you was going to be there, yes, your output might look simple at the end, but you may have sacrificed a lot of nuance. So let's not cut down the rainforest and clear fell it before we know what's in it. Okay, so the mechanisms of content analysis are, you can decide your sampling. What text do I collect? If I'm doing social media, if I use social media to do market research or even sociology and social work research, so you might think you could do that and you might sample social media, let's say Twitter or Facebook. But the problem you have there is you'll get a lot of people who are self-promoters. So they're self-selecting, they're talking a lot. What about all the people who don't say a lot or aren't even on Facebook or Twitter? Well, you won't get them in your data. And so you have to be very careful when you're sampling. And you also have to be careful about your survey design if you're doing a survey, because the question you ask predicts the answer you get. It's called framing, and there's very good research on framing effects. Tversky and Kahneman spring to mind. The Nobel Prize winners, they wrote the book on it, quite literally. So the question you ask is really important. So that's still on you, and that's your job. A content analyst will then decide what is the basic unit of text to analyze. It could be 2 sentences, 1 sentence, a phrase. With Lex, it goes with 2 sentences by default, but you can change that. Then the big one, the big decision, the big place where you reveal your art as a scientist is choosing what to measure. And this isn't just a content analyst, this is any scientist. Whenever you're doing an experiment, you choose what to measure and what to not measure, what to ignore. You rely on experience, training, your supervisor, theory, prior research to tell you what might or might not be significant. Content analysts do the same. We choose what to code into the data. And you might think Leximancer takes away that burden, that decision. It doesn't. The default Leximancer map chooses a code book for you using an algorithm, using a strategy, but you need to be aware that it's doing that, and you could take control and change the categories in your codebook. And you can definitely do that inside Leximancer. You can tell Lex to code data a very different way if you or theory indicates, or your research question indicates that would be needed. But that's important. Okay, now you might wonder, how does Leximancer discover an idea from text? It's not telepathy, it doesn't see in your mind, and it doesn't go out onto the web and look in Wikipedia. Neither does it look at some other text that's not related to your data and maybe some other people's coding of that data to decide what you should measure in your data. I do say that because a lot of commercial content text analytics systems using this AI, as they call it, artificial intelligence, which is a huge misnomer, they train a model of sentiment or a model of meaning on other data, you know, maybe North American news articles or North American business literature, and they might get you know, people other people to code it, to say, you know, what does positive sentiment look like in the data that this company is looking at, and what does negative sentiment look like? And then they train a model, and then they give you that, a list of words or an AI classifier, and they say, well, you can use that in your data, and it'll give you sentiment. And that's totally wrong. You cannot use a concept defined by different people and different data, because the words will be different, the usage of the words will be different, even if some of the words are the same, and other people will disagree with you. Guaranteed, they will disagree with you what the meanings are. And if you know, expertise is, you might think that well, there might be a consensus at what favorable sentiment means, but expertise is one of the key factors in looking at data. You know, if I have an X-ray and I look at it, I wouldn't see anything. I get an expert, you know, a specialist, maybe a cancer specialist, to look at it. They'll see a whole universe in it that I don't see. And that's an expert effect. So when you're coding data, how much you know about the topic really changes how you code it. So yeah, and Leximancer, it codes the data that you give it when you give it. It doesn't use other people's codes. Well, usually, and I say usually, there is a sentiment classifier in Leximancer which does use predefined lists, and we do warn people about using that. But most of the time, it doesn't use predefined lists of words. It finds everything from the text. And so this is an example of a concept pulled from the text, a certain document, an inquiry into an assassination, and it's pulled the idea of a rifle out. So this is what a concept looks like in Leximancer terms. It's not a brain pattern, but it's trying to find the words that these people were thinking about when they were thinking about the idea of a gun. And it does it using a process called latent analysis. This is a latent concept. And you can see a set of words, a list of words, each of which to some extent predict the idea of a rifle. We've talked about coding. Coding is tagging, classifying each two sentences, what concepts from your code book are represented in that text. And then once it's coded, you can count those co-occurrences and occurrences of the codes. If you're doing this by hand, you need to test your coding because people are subject to errors. You know, it's like marking assignments. How you mark them at the start of a 3-day marking run could be different from how you finish up, how you code them at the end. And other people could mark them in different ways. Coding has the same issue with reliability, and you need to test for that. That's if you're doing it manually. Leximancer doesn't have that because the machine does it the same way every day. But the thing you still need to do is your sense making. And that's looking at the results to understand what they mean. And that's really important with Leximancer. This is just an example of coding, applying codes to pieces of text. So there are three types of content analysis. The first generation, probably about the 1940s onward, was just looking at frequency. Now, how many newspaper articles deal with propaganda this month as opposed to last month? So that's frequencies. It doesn't really tell a story. It just does counts and looking for changes in counts. So then the content analysts decided they do relational analysis. So they would look at, what does a concept co-occur with? And these start to tell a little bit of a story. These are the relationships. And Leximancer is all about the relationships between the concepts. Analyzing a single concept is not particularly useful. Analyzing the links, the relationships between them is much more important and meaningful. Then they moved on from relational to say, well, we can do even better than that. We want to create a picture, a map of the information space that we found, give them a bird's eye view. And so they called that cognitive mapping, or more recently, we would call it concept mapping. There are other words for that as well.
Andrew, we have a question.
Yes.
Is there a way we can easily learn the total size and nature of the vocab across all the texts?
So the total size, the total number of words is, if you look in the Leximancer project log and you know where to look, it will tell you the vocab size, how many unique words there are in the text. The nature, well, depends how far you want to go. If you've got only a modest or size of text with a vocab size, you can increase the number of concepts in Leximancer. So you can tell it to go deeper. But there is a place, if you're in the concept seed editor, where you add concepts. If you go add, and I'll show you this in a minute, it will show you the frequent words and the frequent names. And that's like the top 300 words by frequency and the top 500 names. So if that's enough for you, it does show you that in the interface where you go to add a concept. Yeah, so I'll hopefully be able to show you that when we get around to adding concepts. So this is an example of a concept map. This wasn't done with Leximancer. But this is what we're talking about. There are things on it which you might think of as themes or concepts. Each of the ovals, they have connections between them, some strong, some weak. And there's distance. So some things are far apart, some things are near. All of those things are important. And I guess the aim of this is to be intuitive. It's not necessarily intuitive for some people, but when you're constructing it, there's a lot to actually think about. It's made silver and lime green as two different concepts. They could have been put into the same, which might be colors. But there is a neat colors, so there is like a parent concept which contains both. So when do concepts, when are ideas put together into the same bucket, or when are they separate? That's a decision that, well, Leximancer can make that. And nearness. So one end of this map is about fun, aesthetics. We've got fun to drive, neat colors. The other end of the map is rather practical. It's about being inexpensive with good gas mileage and having good traction in winter. So that is deliberate. That is the difference between a practical mindset, and an aesthetic mindset. The links are the common pathways. So a lot of people who said that it has neat colors mentioned it, they came in silver. So these are the narratives. Okay, so that's taken from market research. And a lot of this is...
not too bad, how are you?
You'll see a lot of this in market research, these techniques. because market researchers are used to dealing with complex high-dimensional data sets. So Lex is nothing more than a system which performs most of the steps of content analysis for the user. You still have to decide your research question, select your data, and importantly, make sense of the final model. Any of you who have used NVivo or Atlas, things like that, which are kind of like sisters where you do your own coding on a computer, you'd be used to going through your text piece by piece, applying codes, and when you're done, and that can take a while, and when you're done, you're done. Leximancer is different. Turn the thing around. You put your text in, and Leximancer codes it very quickly. But then you need to go through the model that's produced to make sense of it, and that can take a little time. Maybe a couple of hours. And that's important. You don't just take a copy of the map and drop it in to your report as an end product. Leximancer is certainly about learning. It's meant to give you a structured environment for exploring your data and learning about it. And if that's all you use Leximancer for, like if you're doing a literature review or something, then that's just fine, because that's what I designed it to do. Looks like this: concept map on the left and the frequency analysis. So this is the old style content analysis on the right, frequencies of concepts. You'll see relations between concepts on the right. On the left, this is the cognitive map that I was talking about. And the concepts, the ideas, and their relationships are the building blocks to create this model. Various things you can do with it. I won't dwell on that now. So if you're interested in content analysis, I do recommend Weber as a starting point. It's a good, quick read, and it has what you need to know to get started. Papers. So if you're going to use Leximancer, if you're ever going to write about it in the literature, this would be the citation I would recommend, Smith and Humphreys. So that's, I wrote that with a professor of cognitive psychology, and we went through a validation. It explains technically what it does. It also goes through a validation method taken from the content analysis literature. There's also a couple of examples of using Leximancer, and there's a lot more on the Leximancer website on our science page if you want to see other examples where it's used. Okay, so I guess if there are any questions now before we move on. Any questions, Amy?
No, we've covered the question that we had. We've got some
All right.
tag questions for later on. Oh, hang on, here we go. Is there a way to exclude reference lists?
Yeah, so there are techniques to filter out the majority of reference lists. If it matters a whole lot to you, you can, of course, take the text out of the PDFs and edit it yourself if it's really important. But if you don't have to get everything out, if getting most of it removed is what you want, there are ways to do that. Describing that quickly depends on your level of expertise, whether you'll understand me. I'll just flip over to Leximancer now. So there are, okay, so just quickly, in case I don't get back to it later, how you would do that is you would, two-step process, go into the concept seed editor, go into user-defined tags, okay? Where am I? I'm in concept seed editor here, a little pencil on a piece of paper icon. You go into the fourth tab here called user-defined tags. Here, what you want to do is you want to add a classifier. These are called classifiers, selectors, filters, if you like, that would identify when some text is from a bibliography entry. Now, these are those frequent word and frequent name lists I was talking about before. So here's a frequent vocab words from the text. I think it's the top 300. And these are the frequent names. I think it's about the top 500. So I would look through this list. So if what I want to find is evidence for a bibliography entry, let's go and find. Okay, so here I can see there's page and pages. In this data here, they are when people are talking about the pages they're going to refer to in evidence, actually, witness statements and evidence and reports. In a set of journals, what you'd look for here is frequently the letters PP, because that indicates pages, page numbers, and that's almost always used in a citation or a bibliography entry. You could also look for VOL with a capital V. And so what we can do is push those across and keep looking. You can scan up and down this list, and you could also go up and down the words as well to look for lowercase variants. I'd be looking for PP followed by a full stop. I'd be looking for vol with a capital V, maybe eds for editors, maybe also et and al, which are often used in citation lists. Put those across, move them across into your list on the right. So what I then have created is these tags. So every piece of text, every 2 sentences, 1 or 2, that contains the word pages with a capital P will get tagged by this classifier. Okay, so once that's done, I'm not going to save this change, but once I've got these classifiers which match and only match text which are from a bibliography section, and by the way, user-defined tag is different from a concept. Tags don't get machine learning. The machine learning doesn't develop a vocab around this. It just is the literal dictionary of the word page with a capital P. This thing we're doing here, don't put it as a concept. If they use vol, you don't want it learning other words that indicate they're talking about a volume. You just want capital V, OL. So that's why I'm in user-defined tags. Once that's done, go into concept coding settings, go to kill concepts, and then you could put in the pages or vol or PP from your lists here. You move them in like this. This will, putting Mr. in, the classifier for Mr. in as a kill concept. What does that do? That suppresses, that stops coding every piece of text that includes the word Mr. with a capital M. So if I put in PP, vol, eds, et al. In here, then it would stop coding everything that looked like a bibliography entry. That's how I could filter all that stuff out of the data. I'm not going to spend any more time on that now. And there are some, for people who are just getting going, there's some advanced ideas there, techniques, which you probably won't get anyway at this point. But anyway, that is the answer. So what was I doing? Okay, so just to show you the concept map, this is a set of data. This is a real Leximancer project here. What's the time? I could probably run this. I don't want to run out of time before I get around to people's questions though. Look, I might just create a new project from scratch so you can see how it's done. So I'm going to start a new one here. Close my projects that I've got open. Okay. So over here on the left-hand side, if you're starting up, you'll just see Leximancer. For the first time, you'll see 2 folders in your project area, Leximancer projects and tutorial projects. Just don't worry about tutorial, just go into Leximancer projects and you can create folders by right-clicking, go new folder, or you can right-click to create a project directly. But you probably would want to organize your projects into folders. So, and I'm going to click on my demonstration sets. Then I'm going to right-click and go create a project. And let's just call this demo. Give it a name. Okay. So now in this folder, it's created a project called demo and opened up its project control panel. So this is the project builder environment for a project called demo. Now it's a pipeline. So there are these 4 stages for building the model. At the end, you can see the reports and the outputs, but we can't see them now because it hasn't been built. And that's why these nodes are all blue. So to get going, the minimum you need to do is click on Select Documents. This is how you tell this project which documents from either your hard disk or in the portal you upload text into your data area. So this is, I'm using desktop Leximancer, so I'm going to go onto my hard disk and find some text. So here I'm looking through folders on my hard disk, on my operating system. This is a Mac, so it looks a bit different for a PC. And in my text data area, which I keep obviously all my text in, so I know where to find it, I can see there's a set of data here called ICL Explosion Inquiry. It's actually about 21, 22 days of transcripts from a Royal Commission, a Commission of Inquiry. So you could drag separate files over, but I want to do the whole lot, and I don't want to go through picking all those separate files. So this is why it's a good idea to put your files into folders, your text data into folders. That way I can just drag the folder across, and then the project will analyze all the text inside that. Okay, so grab the folder, move it over here, set OK. Now, that node's turned green, and that means I've done it. Now, to get going, to do an exploratory map, the only other thing I have to do is press Generate Results. And so if I do that, it will run all the intermediate processing. And so what it's doing here is it's extracting the text from these documents. It will then extract the keywords called concept seeds, but they are keywords. I mean, we use them for more than just being keywords, but that's what they look like. So that's working through. It's got the seed words now. And what's happening now is the generate thesaurus, that's where the machine learning lives. That takes each seed word and builds a thesaurus around it. So this is those latent concepts. So the reason I showed you that concept of rifle earlier on in the slides, that latent concept, this is what's happening now. So if the seed word rifle, the keyword rifle was important in this data, the thesaurus builder would then go and find all the additional vocab associated with that idea. So it turns a keyword into a concept, a list of related words. You might ask, why does it do that? Well, because people don't just use the same word again and again to describe an idea. You know, they know more and they use it. You know, in our minds, we have, if I'm talking about a dog, there's a lot of words I could use to talk about a dog. I could call it a hound, a runt, a dachshund, a collie dog. I could talk about Rex the dog. I could talk about its collar, its kennel, and so forth. And we don't, stylistically, we don't use the same word again and again. We mix it up. That's why the system, Leximancer, needs to discover all those related words so it can code. If I talk about a collie dog called Rex, well, if I'm talking about a collie called Rex, that's a dog, all right, but the word dog may not be there. So how does the system know I'm talking about a dog at that time? That's what the Thesaurus Learning does. It discovers all the related words and uses those so it can direct you to places in the text where ideas are talked about, but they don't use just the obvious keywords. So it's just doing the coding now. And this is taking what it's learned and applying it to the data. This will run a lot faster for you. I've filled my computer up with stuff doing other things this morning. I should have shut some of it down. Okay, so now we've got a concept map. And where am I going now? There are a couple of obvious reports here. So the outputs are in the results box. One is the concept map, one is called topic guide. We'll look at the concept map first. And what you can see here, so I can shut this drawer, close my project collection, just to give me more screen room. If you've got a small screen, that can be helpful. So we've got, well, there's a lot of stuff here, and I don't have time to go through all of it now. But I have talked about the concepts. And if you want to see those, over here on the right-hand side, there are some tabs. One's called Thesaurus. And here I can see the latent concepts. So it's developed a concept called building from this data. If I click on the concept name building, I can see the word lists, the list of words which predict that idea in the data. Latent concept, list of words, weighted. So the stronger this number, the more predictive of the idea of building is. And you can see the flavor. This is a vocabulary that these are people use when they're talking about a building. And this is used, so if a piece of text talks about, the apex of the building, the apex was demolished or collapsed, or there was a pathway, assembly, accommodation, then if there's enough of these words, then the system can work out that they're talking about a building, even though they don't say that word. And you can explore this if you want to get a sense of the vocabulary behind the concepts in your map. I can see the sense of corrosion here, and so forth. So this is how the concepts are defined. Then the system uses these to code them. So I can see here in the rank concept list, this is frequency, this is content analysis, first generation. So we got the frequency of appearance of concepts. So the concept of building, which we just looked at its definition, has been coded into 881 text segments. If you want to see those 881, you can just click on the number. And here they all are. All those 881 text segments. I can see the piece of text. If I want to see its original context, I can click on the link above it, this thing here, which actually also shows you where it appeared. So this piece of text comes from day 10, 17th of July. If I click on that link, I can see what else was mentioned around it. I can use the log here to put these pieces of text in a little log, and then you can go and view log to see that. If I want to drop these pieces of text into a report, I can export them, these text segments. So here we go. I could download them using the button at the top, or I could just copy and paste them. So I could do, Control A, Control C. No, that didn't work so well, but anyway, maybe downloading it is the safest, because that'll download as a CSV file, which you can open in Excel and drop into a Word document from there. So, yeah. Was there a question, Amy? Sorry, I thought I had someone speak. So this is the frequency.
But we probably should move to questions.
Yeah, all right. So frequency of coding. Just before we move on, this is frequency. If you want to look at co-occurrence, if I want to see what codes with tank, click on tank, the concept, and you can see what it's related to. So places in the text which code with tank, also quite a lot of them code with valve. wall, top. So this shows you the co-occurrence of concepts, and you can start to see stories emerging. Tank and valve, well, what's that about? If I click on the number here, 189, I can see all those pieces of text where they're talking about those two ideas. And then those relationships between like tank and valve, and so I can explore all of those. I can look at the co-occurrences of building. It co-occurs with the floor and the ground. And so these co-occurrences, these are the relationships or links where most of the meaning is. And these are used to create the concept map. And if I click around on the concept map, I can see the relationships. So if I look at a concept like building, I can see what it's related to. I can see it qualitatively on the map, and I can see it quantitatively. Like if I click on valve on the map, I can see what it's related to, and over here that shows me the relationships of valve, and I can then go and make sense of them. I can go and explore the text around valve and pressure or whatever. So there's a lot to see on the map, and I don't really have time, but suffice to say that if I increase these themes, so these themes are the bubbles. The bubbles on the map are themes, and it's hierarchical clustering for those of you who do any sort of quant analysis. So I can change the level of hierarchical clustering to show major tendencies in this information space. So I can make the themes very big by increasing the theme size, and I can show that one end of the map is about legal procedure, talking about evidence and paragraphs and chatter between the chairman and the counsel. The other end is about the substantive, the engineering. So you're getting into the use of these sorts of cognitive maps. There's a lot of literature around that, around multidimensional scaling, correspondence analysis, of how you can use this to do dimensional analysis, cluster analysis, and looking for themes. You can definitely use this to do thematic analysis in text. But I probably need to move on. So any questions at this point, Amy? All right. So I think there was a question about how to add your own concepts to a map. I'm going to restart my browser. My computer is not. All right. So let's go back into that project. Now, what I was saying about the selection of the concepts, like we saw in the concept map that Leximancer has detected and extracted the important concepts from this text. Now, when I say important, I'm being very, I guess, glib about that. What Lex does, it tries to select a set of concepts which cover the data. So it's trying to select the smallest or, a modest number of concepts which still cover most, if not all, of the text that you've given it. That's its policy. That's its strategy for selecting its concepts. But that doesn't mean that necessarily suits your research question. You might not care about legal procedure. And so you might think that all the material or the concept space about presenting evidence and interviews and statements is irrelevant. Well, to you it is. It's not irrelevant to this document set or to the commission of inquiry. And if you're interested in analyzing legal procedure, it will be relevant to you. But on the day, if that's not what's of interest to you, then you may want to change the set of concepts dramatically. You may want to add your own. As I said before, you can remove concepts. So first of all, you might want to remove concepts. You do that here in concept coding settings. Instead of using these wildcards like all concepts, and all discovered names. That just pulls in pretty much all the automatic concepts. If I don't want those, just get rid of them from this mapping concepts list. And then I can just go through and choose the things I want. So I can just pull in the substantive ideas and leave the things I'm not interested in. If I don't care about them referring to particular pages in reports, I can leave out things like page and read. And so this is telling my coding engine what to code with. These are the concepts to code with, and don't code the data with these other ones. So then I could just use those. So I can, if the concepts I want are here, I can select them and leave out the ones I don't want. So that's one way you can proceed to tune how your data is coded. Just leave them out of the mapping concepts list. And that lives here on the concept coding settings. If the concepts you want don't exist, or let's say the combinations of concepts you want don't exist, you can actually create your own compound concepts here in the compound concepts editor. So if I want to create, if I want to combine a concept into, combine several building blocks, if you like, into one more complex idea, I can do it here as a compound. So if I want to create a compound for corrosion in pipe work, I could get corrosion and move it across here to my workbench. Then I could go and find the concept for pipe work. And maybe I could click all three, pipes, pipe, and pipe work, and I could move these across. So then I want to create a compound that tells me, that codes for places in the text where people talk about pipe, or they talk about pipes, or they talk about pipe work. I don't care which. So let's combine those three. And what I do is I click on the three I want to combine, and then I press the button up here for the operator. So in this case, I want to know if they code with any one of those. That is a Boolean OR, so I use OR. So that creates a new compound concept, which will match if they talk about pipe in the singular, plural, or the idea of pipe work in the abstract. And then if I want to say, well, I don't want that. I want to know if they talk about these three, and at the same time, they're coded with talking about corrosion. So what I do then is I tick both of those and I combine them with an AND. That's a Boolean AND. So now if I hover my mouse over that, this will code for places in the text which mention corrosion concept and also one of the pipe variants. So now I've created a compound concept. And if I hit OK, that will save it. And well, I might as well do it. So now I see that I've changed the coding dictionary. I go and look where I'm going to the concept coding settings, make sure that I am using it to code. For example, if I'd taken this, if I just selected a few of my own concepts and then added a new one, you wouldn't appear on the map. It's not an error. It just means you need to go back in here to the Mapping Concepts tab and move it over onto the map, like that. So just be aware of what's going on in this list. If you take control of the concepts used to code the data, then if you add a new concept, you need to add that as well. Anyway, I'm just going to go back to all concepts at the moment, and then we can run that. So that'll put the compound on the map. So we've covered removing some of the concepts from the map. We've covered creating some new ones by compounding the existing concepts. And that we'll let that finish. But you might also want to know if the concepts I want are not in the set of automatic concepts, how can I add them? So that's done further back. Just that'll finish quickly. I might save some time and skip to the other project. So where you add concepts, okay, there are a couple of ways you could do that. If all you want is to go deeper, you know, this is the automatic map, but I feel that I need more concepts. Now you probably wouldn't in this. This is fairly busy as it is. It's fairly complex, but you might. How would you know? Well, one way I judge it is over here on the concepts tab, I look at the ranked concepts list and I look how far down this distribution. So this is characteristic of words and text and concepts, that you get some very frequent concepts and a lot of very infrequent ones. It's called Zipf's law if you're interested. And I'd look down to see how deep I'm going. I'm down to 10% on that list. That is just enough. I would really want this list to hit 10% or lower. So you could potentially add some more concepts to go deeper here to get a better story. Where do I do that? If I want to go deeper, I go into concept seed settings with its diamond icon and the total number of concepts. I can crank that up. I can say, well, I don't want 100, I want maybe 140 concepts. So that will go deeper into the less frequent concepts. You'll always get the same top number of concepts, the most important ones, but you can go deeper using this setting. Okay. But if I really do want to take complete control and specify my own concepts, you do that here in concept seeds. We've already talked briefly about adding your own static dictionary, just adding some words. But if I really want to make them concepts, you go to these first two tabs here in the seed editor. The first one contains Leximancer's automatic concepts. You know, maybe you don't want any of those. To do that, I would tick the tick box at the top. It selects them all, and then I can go remove. So that we're not using Leximancer's automatic concepts now because I've removed them. So where do I go? Well, you have to have some concepts, and to put in your own, go to user-defined concepts. That's the third tab, and press add. Once again, you're presented with the frequent words and the frequent names. So what we're going to do here is we're going to seed a concept. Now, maybe I want a concept around safety. So I want to add my own concept around the idea of safety. Now I might think, okay, well, let's see if safety is in the frequent word list. So if we go down into the S's and let's have a look. Safety, right, and safe is also there. So I'm going to move those across. But I see risk there. Well, that's convenient. Risk is maybe also an important part of safety for me. I could have a bit of a scan up this list, see if there's anything else that jumps out of me as being possibly about safety and risk. I would say that the way I would do this is I would look at the automatic map first. So rather than just trying to guess the usage of these words, I would create an automatic map and go and see what area of the map there talks about risk and safety. So just to show you that, I'm going to add these onto this map. So you can see I now have a user-defined concept around safety, and risk. These are the seed words. These are the starting points for a concept. Leximancer will then go and learn all the vocabulary associated with each of these to turn it into a fully fledged latent concept. But these are the starting points. If you like, these are the prototypes that you can specify. So then if I save that and press generate thesaurus, it will go and find all the other words around those ideas. And so now I could have a look, see if they're on the map. Okay, it's not going to be might not be a particularly interesting map with only 3 concepts on, but that's what we'll get. And it will go and code the data with those 3 concepts. And when it's finished, we can go and have a look at the thesaurus it learnt around the seed words that I specified. Didn't like that. Okay. Okay, that's what happens when you get an error. If you do get an error, you can click on here for details. And you can basically, if you don't understand what this is saying, it looks like it's a cluster error. You can send that to us. I think, what did I do? I think I don't have enough concepts, is what most likely would happen there. So 3 concepts isn't enough to cluster it seems. So let's go, you could add more. You could also, if you feel sure that safe and safety mean the same thing, you could merge them. And there's a merge button there. But again, you have to be sure that they do mean the same thing in the data. And saying that something is safe is not necessarily the same thing as talking about health and safety. So when I talked about the best way of finding the starting point of how words are used in the data, for me, is to go and look at the concept map and look for clues. So what I'm looking for here is, where in this map are they talking about safety? And I want to drill in. And so I can see safety here, and I can see health with a capital H. I can see HSE. So this area of the map, and there's disaster and risk. So there's actually an area in the map that already deals with that. And so if you can find that, that shows you the important words to use. And so if you go to seed your own concepts, it's good to know how to choose the best starting words. Because if you choose a word that isn't in the text or is only used once or twice as a concept seed for your own concept, you will not get good results. So it is best to go and find the words that are the important words in the data. Find how the data expresses the idea you're interested in. It might not be the way that the literature says. It might not be the way that that some theoretical framework suggests. The words they use may be different. The ideas may be the same, but the words can be different. So the trick here is to work out how they're saying what you're interested in, what words they're using to indicate it. So I would start with automatic map and then go back and specify my user-defined concept seeds. And here I need to pick a few more than that to get it to finish. Anyway, that was one of the questions that people had asked beforehand about how to add your own concepts. And I've taken you through that at some length. I haven't covered it in the webinar before, so I thought it was worth looking at. Are there any further questions about that topic?
I think you've answered it, Andrew, but it was framed by someone that can we or should we change concept names perhaps to suit a theoretical framework?
Look, I think a good place to do that is, the place that I do it is changing the theme names. So, on the map, there are these bubbles which identify clusters. We can see those more clearly by hiding the concepts. And I really encourage people, don't stick with these theme names that Leximancer has assigned. All they are is the most connected concept. You see, if I reveal the concepts, this slider reveals the most connected, the most important first. So you see the mountain peaks, and then you can see, the high mountains and the smaller mountains. So it's quite a good reveal to show what are the important topics and then go deeper. But you can see that the most connected concepts give each of these bubbles their name. But that's not necessarily a good name for the theme. So I encourage people to rename the bubble. And you might think, well, that's not obvious to begin with. And that's great. That's the point. Because it leads you into the question of, well, what does this cluster, this area of the map, what does it mean? We give you a tab here to help you do that sense making. It's called the Analyst Synopsis. It's the first tab. And if I'm using it, I make sure I set this detail level to high. So then for every bubble on the map, I see there's an item in the bar chart and in the list. So if I want to know what is HSE, what does it mean as a theme, I can see that it's got 3,791 text segments, which have been coded with this broad theme. If I click on it, I can scroll down and see the concepts that are contained in that. So within this area of the map, you can see evidence, fact, guidance, information, risks. Yeah, it overlaps, so it's quite close to safety and risk, but they've actually moved away from it a little bit. Anyway, you can read the top pieces of text which describe this theme. And if you want to go deep, you click on this list of words, list of concepts here that are contained in it, and it will show you all those 3,791 text segments. And so reading these, even just read 20 of them, get an idea of what they're saying about this theme of HSE. So the HSE had been aware of over the period of time, they only reacted after a particular it's about health and safety. I think it's a committee, is what I recall. So you can read through and see all the context. And when you've sampled that, what qualitative analysts have this idea of reading until saturation. So you wouldn't read necessarily all 3,700 pieces of text, but keep reading until you stop being surprised, until you find the same narrative, the same ideas appearing again and again, and think about it, reflect about it, and come up with a paragraph in your own words about what this theme means. There's certainly a sense of liability here. Did they do enough? Did the Health and Safety Committee in this company do enough? Did they respond to, I guess, government regulation? Were they compliant? Were inspectors listened to? Or was the product supplier listened to? So come up with a paragraph in your own words about what this is about. And then you could come up with a better name. This might be health and safety liability. So give it a better name. Now, if that's driven by theory, sure. Give each theme a name from your theoretical framework. How you could do that? Well, first of all, write it in a Word document. You know, if I'm going through and sense making each theme, I would go and look at each bubble, each cluster, understand what it means, write a paragraph in a Word document that describes it, give it a heading, and then pull some of these verbatims, maybe 3 or 4 or more, as examples to go underneath that. So certainly creating a Word document as your, a log of your analysis, your sense making. On the map, you can, if you want, if you right click near a theme name, it will let you rename it on the map. So I could rename pipework to, it could be flow infrastructure. And that will appear on the map, though I would note that if you close this report and reopen it, that will disappear. There is a way you can save it using this bookmarking. So if I want to save this view, I can bookmark it as my view. Save it. Okay, so now if I close this map and come back in, I can reload. Oh, okay. I was using an old map. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, well, you have to believe me. That map had been superseded because I ran this process behind it. And I shouldn't, I recommend not doing that. I just violated my own precept. If you've got old maps open, if you go back and refactor them, if you go back and change the settings, then you should close the view. So yeah, don't keep them open longer than you need to. But so you can rename themes on the map. Otherwise, what you can do is, if you want to do a lot of changes to your map, I really recommend saving it as SVG. So you can save pictures of the map, and you can save them as, you know, JPEG or PNG or TIFF, which are bitmap or pixel formats. But they're hard to change, you know. You need Photoshop, and they're tricky to change. If you export this image of the map as an SVG format, so where did I go? I clicked on this button above the map. It looks like a picture. Save image of the map. In SVG format, I can then save that, put it maybe on my desktop. And then what I can do is I can open that in an SVG editor, that file. And my SVG editor that I've got installed is called Boxy. It's only about $10. So why do we do this? Well, this means that, okay, this area of the map is a bit too busy. So what I can do is I can move things around. So I've just moved that concept's name. I can go and move the theme name. Whoops. Obviously I'm not very good with Boxy, but anyway. You can edit everything you want about it. You can even, you know, you can select a bubble and you can make it bigger. You can change its color. You can change this to grayscale. So if you ever want to publish or reproduce one of these maps, saving the SVG is pretty much the first thing you do, is a really good thing. Because, you know, if you want to come back, reproduce it in a journal, you want to rename a theme, you want to move the name of a theme outside so you can see it. You want to change it to grayscale. Or you know, if the editor comes back and says, I need it with much more resolution than you've given me, if you only had a bitmap, you'd have to go back and try and you know, find it again. And you know, if you deleted the project or something, you know, you might not be able to find it, or if you change the project. Whereas if you've got the SVG, you can always go open the SVG. I want it in higher resolution. You can press the export button and increase the resolution. So I can increase the resolution. Go and select all. Go and export the selection. So I can increase the resolution. I've got it at maximum now, 400 DPI with Boxy. Adobe Illustrator will do the same job. If you have Adobe Illustrator, it will edit SVG files. So I do recommend using that to modify pretty much anything you want about the map. All right. So questions?
It's the SVG editor, but I think people are helping each other. It's Boxy, but there are lots of different SVG editors that are available online. Free.
Yeah, Adobe Illustrator would probably have the most features, but of course it's not cheap.
Yeah, but there are quite a few free. Is Boxy free?
No, but it's only about $10. Just go to your app store and get it for your computer, whatever, whether it's PC or Mac. And it's pretty full featured actually when you get used to it. Okay. Are there any advanced sort of questions that people want to ask at this point?
There's also Inkscape is free.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
So everyone can see that. So there's a question. I want to know how to import the website data, like articles, to use Leximancer. Does that mean PDFs? Or what do you mean by website data? HTML.
Oh, well, so you need to get the web content downloaded. Leximancer won't download data for you. But if you have the HTML files, Leximancer will analyze them for you. It's one of the supported formats. So, you know, if you have a folder of all the HTML files on a website, you can go and select documents, and it is one of the supported character types. Let's just expand that. XHTML, text HTML. So yeah, if the extension is HTML or HTML in the file, Leximancer will process it. If you want to get web content off the web, well, there are
Perhaps they're asking about a web scraper.
Yeah, so the web scraper I use is called, it's a funny name, it's called Down Them All. It was created by, I think, someone from Scandinavia whose English was a little eccentric, but it's called Down Them All. Just see if I can open it up. Oh, no, I don't want to be here. Open a new window. It's a plugin. Yeah, it's called Down Them All.
Down Them All.
It's an extension. It's an extension for Firefox. And what you can do is you can select all the links. You can select all the links in a page. So you can download selection. So I think if I have a web page. Anyway, have a play with Down Them All. A web page. Just want the password here.
We've got another
links
question.
On a web page and write.
Oh, sorry.
And bring them all down. Anyway. Yes, question.
We've got a question just regarding languages. If it's a forum and there's a mix of languages.
Yes.
How would it handle that?
Well, so Leximancer's language support, it has quite a few. It won't do Chinese, Korean, or Japanese, or Thai, because they don't have spaces between words, and you need spaces between words. You also need end of sentence punctuation, like full stops. But it does support quite a few languages. So Danish, German, Finnish, Greek in the Greek character set, English, Spanish, French. It's got Russian in the Russian character set. So these are the languages. These are actually the language codes. But if you hover the mouse, you can choose. So when you select a set of data, like a file or a folder in Leximancer, you can tell it what language it belongs to. So if it was Deutsch, it's German, I would tell it it's German. And then it will go and select the right stop word list. So Lex does use stop word lists, and I haven't shown that. You can look at the stop list. So if I go into text processing settings, edit stop list, you can then go and load in, let's say, if I want to look at the German stop list, I could go and bring it in and I could edit it. So if I was analyzing for German data, I could then go and actually extend the German stop list if I wanted to. So the thing is, if you've got data which is a mixed set of languages, you can't really. So in the interface, you need to choose one language and only one. So there is a way around it. So the standard answer is you can only analyze text from one language at a time. And in actual fact, it makes the most sense anyway to do that, to just look at. So if this text was mixed language and I just wanted to analyze one of the languages from it, I could just go and choose the language. So let's say I want to just look at the Spanish content. I could say to Lex, this is Spanish. And hit click OK, it would save that. Then what I would need to do then is in text processing settings, I need to turn on the prose tester. So the prose test threshold, I would need to make it like 3. What that will do, that will filter out language that isn't from the one that you've told it. So this will filter out anything that isn't Spanish by turning on prose testing. So then you would just get a map mostly of the Spanish content. If you do really want a map with all the languages on it at once, you have to, what you have to do is in edit stop list, just go and pick the default stop list, which would be English. Just tell it the data is English. And then what you have to do is you have to create a stop list with all the other languages in as well as English. It's a little tricky. I think I would have to help. So if you really have a need to get a multilingual map all at once, you probably best talk to me and I can probably help you with that. It's possible, but then the map doesn't look all that great, because what you get is you get clusters of concepts from the Spanish, clusters of concepts from the English, the German, and they all form their own little continents, their own little clusters. And kind of looks, it's a bit odd. So yeah, I mean, it seems like a nice idea, but I would recommend just focusing on one language at once, really. I should say there is an FAQ on the website. So on the support page on the leximancer.com website, there is an FAQ, frequently asked questions, and it does take you through, there's a whole section of answers to questions about analyzing multilingual or other languages.